Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Commander Clash podcast, where the Commander Clash crew, me, Seth, Richard, and Krim, are here to discuss Commander-related topics. And this week, we have a very spicy one. Wizards of the Coast has given us a full pre-constructed deck from Adventures of the Forgotten Realms, a full Commander pre-constructed deck for us to showcase to the world. So we're super excited to show you a bunch of brand new cards. Some of them are going to be actually exclusive to this pre-constructed deck. So before we jump into the pre-constructed deck and analyze it and show you all the details about it, let's first talk about where you can buy these cards. And Seth, where could you buy all these sweet new cards that are coming out real soon?
Ooh, you can always get them from our sponsor, Card Kingdom, by heading over to cardkingdom.com/mtggoldfish. You can even get a sweet MTG Goldfish sticker if you ask them in your order notes. So cardkingdom.com/mtggoldfish.
And again, thank you so much, Wizards of the Coast, for this pre-constructed deck. And now let us dive into the juicy bits. So let us start first with what this deck is all about. This is Planar Portal, which is a Rakdos pre-constructed deck. It is red and black, and it basically lets you take the role of an arch enemy at the table, the big bad evil guy in D&D terms, and you're utilizing the dark powers found in Dungeons & Dragons, such as Devils and Beholders, to use your opponent's own decks against them. There's a couple main themes going on in this deck. The first one is all about exiling cards. There are a ton of cards in this deck that care about exiling cards, either to steal your opponent's creatures, exiling them, or exiling the top cards of their library, or exiling some cards off the top of your own library to cast them. And the other main themes of this deck are stealing your opponent's stuff. There are a lot of cards here, 11 cards here, that are all about stealing your opponent's cards and using those cards against them. And then finally, there's a theme about creating tokens and sacrificing them for value. And there's about 10 cards of those. And for people who really enjoy dice rolling, I know if you're big on Dungeons & Dragons, you roll a lot of dice in that game, and that's part of the fun. There are 6 new cards in this pre-constructed deck that care about rolling dice. So like D10s, D20s. So if you're a fan of the randomness that dice provides, then you're going to enjoy this Precon. Now that we have like the deck's main goals out of the way, let's start looking at the cards that are featured in this deck. And we're going to start with the face commander of this pre-constructed deck, which kind of manifests and showcases what this deck is all about. This is Prosper Tome-Bound. And Seth, let's kick it off with you. Let's hear about what Prosper's all about.
Ooh, so Prosper Tome-Bound, the face commander, is 4 mana, 2 generic, a black and a red. You get a legendary Tiefling Warlock creature. It's a 1/4. It has Death Touch. It has an ability called Mystic Arcanum, which says at the beginning of your end step, exile the top card of your library until the end of your next turn. You can play that card, and it has another ability called Pact Boon, which whenever you play a card from exile, you create a treasure token. Tomer, you're the D&D expert here. Mystic Arcanum, Pact...
Tiefling.
It's whatever.
Then if it's Tiefling, then Dungeons and Dragons should have different letters in their creature types.
Tiefling,
because TIE does not say T. But would you like me to start over and say it the opposite way?
No, it's perfect. I loved it.
We even went over this before the cast. I guess I was not.
You just not
paying
we don't want to tilt
attention.
these Dungeons and Dragons players. We better pronounce all this correctly.
Look, we just use Seth to pronounce all of them, so we don't know how to say it.
I'll take the heat. I'll take the heat.
You're the shield.
But Tomer, I got a question for you. I've never seen words like Mystic Arcanum or Pact Boon on Magic cards. What are these weird ability words?
So these are actually callbacks to Dungeons and Dragons. These new mechanics are not in the traditional sense as like evergreen keywords that we've seen in Magic the Gathering before, like trample or flying. These are what Wizards of the Coast is referring to as flavor words. They don't really need to be there, but they're there mostly to evoke the flavor of the mechanics, the flavor of what this card is all about. And these two flavor words, Mystic, Arcanum, and Pact Boon, are two things that are classic abilities that you would find in Dungeons & Dragons on the Warlock class. So Prosper Tome-Bound is a tiefling or tiefling. Let us know in the comment section below which one that one is. It's a tiefling warlock. And so the tiefling is its race, and warlock is its class. And all warlocks get those two abilities, Mystic Arcanum and Pact Boon. So that's me nerding out about the lore. But what do you think about these abilities?
I gotta say, in the Magic world, these abilities are actually really sweet. I love commanders that generate card advantage. And Prosper, it's a commander that the turn that you play it, you get to start generating card advantage. By exiling the top card, you even get a whole extra turn to play it. And if you play that card, you're getting a treasure. So not only is it generating card advantage, it's also ramping. And if you were going to pick the two most important things for any commander deck to do, it would be drawing cards and ramping. Those are literally the best things you can do in the entire format. And Prosper does both of those all in one card in your command zone. So you're going to have access to it every single game, multiple times a game if it dies.
Yeah, this card looks sweet. And also one really notable thing about this ability, the Pact Boon ability, this is one of the first times, or perhaps the first time ever, that we've seen a card give you a reward for playing a card from exile. Not just from its own ability, but from any ability. And we're going to see in this deck, exiling and casting spells from exile or playing cards from exile is a common thing. It's something that's heavily supported. So when Prosper's on the battlefield, you're going to be generating a ton of tokens, not just from its own ability, but from a lot of the other cards in this deck.
Yeah, it synergizes very well with a ton of cards. There's so many exile, and you can cast these cards effects, and the treasure tokens let you really snowball that effect, which I think is really powerful. It's almost like this little ritual that's attached to all the spells you're casting from exile, and thanks to Tectonic Giants and Fiend of Shadows and like 20 different cards in this deck, you're always going to have something to cast from exile to make those treasures and hopefully keep snowballing that advantage.
So Seth mentioned it, right? But the deck is all about exiling, right? So Prosper is its own engine over there, but there's like Dark Dweller Oracle, there's Gonti, there's Tectonic Giant, Light Up the Stage, Commune with Lava. Like all of these cards are in the Precon for you to draw cards draw cards off with Prosper. And then there's also like a lot of mechanics from Magic's history also work with Prosper. Things like Impulse Draw, like Light Up the Stage, stuff like that. We have Suspend cards, Rebound, Cascade, Foretell, Adventures. All of these mechanics cause you to cast spells from exile. So you get to synergize with your commander if you have any of those existing cards.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of upgrade potential with Prosper. Like, not only does this deck has 27 cards that exile, and most of those let you play those cards afterwards from exile. But then, just in general, Black and Red have a ton of cards outside of this Precon that you can easily slot in to really get the maximum value, the treasure value out of this card. So definitely a card to consider building around or upgrading this deck further with more of these Exile Matters payoff cards. All right, moving on. This was the face of the commander, but we have another lieutenant. I don't know what the name of this would be, like a secondary card. General? Yeah, it's another commander, also Rakdos, can also easily be the leader of this deck as well. And this really feels like a Crim card. So Crim, tell us about this.
We have Karazikar with the Eye Tyrant, which is 3 in a Rakdos. Whenever you attack a player, tap target creature that player controls and goad it. And then whenever an opponent attacks another one of your opponents, you and the attacking player each draw a card and lose a life. Now, This seems pretty sweet. I love that second part, and more importantly, this beholder type, I think, is something from D&D. I've seen a lot of this everywhere. I thought it was from Doom, but I think this is like this thing. These eye creatures look so cool. So I don't know anything about D&D. I know how like some of the words pronounce, not all of them, but I know the beholders. These things are sweet. And of course, the magic side of it, where this card, I mean, I love goading, and on top of that, I love politicking and benefiting off of it. Actually, you'll get to draw cards. You both lose a life. It's great.
Yeah, I like both of these things. And I guess as a D&D lore nerd of the group, I will also say Beholders are definitely from Dungeons & Dragons. They're one of the most iconic monsters in that system, in that game system. And they're basically like these magical aberrations that are incredibly powerful, super intelligent, but they're also all insane, super insane, and they're incredibly paranoid. And they're actually, at least from what I remember, the way they're birthed is they're actually the nightmares of another beholder made manifest. So that's how they they reproduce, which is just hilarious to me. And apparently Karazikar is a notable character in the Forgotten Realms world. I don't know too much about this beholder in particular, but I do know they are very sweet and powerful monsters in Dungeons & Dragons, and both these abilities look incredible to me.
I also wanted to add real quick, don't sleep on that last ability. If there's one thing I've learned about Commander players, it's they will go out of their way to draw a card if they can. So even though that ability might not look like much, it actually is going to do a pretty good job of incentivizing your opponents to not attack you and to attack each other so they can draw that extra card. So even though there's not a ton of like goading spells in this deck, I think even as a standalone card, it's going to do a lot of work in this deck.
Yeah, you don't even need to go
This card's really good. Yeah. You will draw 3 cards per turn cycle. Right? Like everyone will want their card. You will get. Like I'd be concerned about losing too much life from this. You lose 1 life every time you draw a card. People are going to go ham killing each other. You don't need to go. You have a 5/5 if they want to try to attack into you. Like it's pretty good. The only thing is, shouldn't this fly? Doesn't the eyeball fly? I'm confused.
It levitates, yes.
I think they're called tieflings, so you do not want to ask me about the lore of D&D.
It looks like it should fly, but it does not fly.
Yeah, it should fly, right? I definitely
so.
get that vibe, but I guess not.
I would also say I wouldn't sleep on the first ability either. Like, basically, this is a great way for you to clear out blockers and get some lethal damage through, right? Like whenever you attack a player, you tap target creature that player controls. So if they have a blocker up, suddenly they're tapped down and they can't do anything about it. Even better is now that you've goaded it, not only are you guaranteeing they're going to have to attack, probably in a way that they don't want to be attacking. If you're like tapping down like a 2/2 utility creature, like an Oracle of Moldiah or something like that, they don't want to attack with that Oracle of Moldiah, but you might be sending them into a potential blocker to die as well. You're causing indirect damage to your opponents. And also, when you're goading them, they're going to be attacking, and they're going to be tapped down again, so that means you can attack them again. So I think both these abilities are incredibly powerful. They don't look too strong at first glance, but as someone who loves these type of cards, like Brina, like Edric, like all these stuff, these 2 abilities are going to be low-key incredible. So I'm really excited for this one as well.
I have one other quick question for you guys before we move on. Let's say I buy this Precon. How wise would it be for me to just switch my commander and play this as my main commander? Like, is it synergistic enough with the rest of the deck that my deck is still going to function and like be powerful if I drop Prosper and play this instead as my commander?
I think yes.
Yes.
I think
that
like,
might be the play.
Yeah, I think like I really like Prosper, and I would be happy to run Prosper as a commander as well. And obviously, Prosper has synergies with all these Exile Matters cards or Exile cards that Karazikar doesn't. But you're going to be drawing so many cards with Karazikar. You're going to be goading so much that like it doesn't matter. Like, yes, there's going to be a little bit less synergy, I think. If Karazikar is on the command zone instead of the 99, but it more than makes up for it with that inherent power that it comes with, I think.
Yeah, totally. I think I would swap it out. I mean, I like
you
this
will-
a lot more though.
Yeah, you will most likely draw more cards with the Beholder than with Prosper. Because the deck, even though there are synergies, it's more of a good stuff deck. Like you're just getting like little bonuses on top of something. Like you get to draw an additional card when you do your impulse draw, or you're getting a treasure token. It's not a make or break thing. So you could swap your commanders around.
I like Prosper more, just because it's more unique. But like, they're both really sweet.
I like Prosper more too, but I think it is really cool that if you pick up the deck, you kind of have two decks and they'll play a little bit differently just by like switching those two cards where they are. So something to keep in mind if you do pick it up. A little, you won't get bored with it. It'll give you another option to play it.
Yeah, it's definitely really seamless to swap it out and still have a really cohesive deck. All right, we have one more legendary to talk about, a brand new card in this pre-constructed deck. But this is not Rakdos. This is Mono Black. It's Lorcan Warlock Collector. Richard, tell us about it.
All right, we have Lorcan Warlock Collector, 5 black, so 7 mana value, legendary creature Devil. It's a 6/6 with flying. Whenever a creature card is put in an opponent's graveyard from anywhere, you may pay life equal to its mana value. If you do, put it onto the battlefield under your control. It's a Warlock in addition to its other types. And if a Warlock you control would die, exile it instead. So steal your opponent's creatures on their way to the graveyard by paying life. And good news is you are in Rakdos. The deck is full of ways to kill your opponent's creatures. We have cards like Hex. You can kill 6 creatures and get 6 creatures on your side if you have enough life for it. Tysis, Terminate, things like that. Also, note it says from anywhere. So if you want to add a little discard package to your deck, you can just yoink cards out of people's hands and then steal them with Lorcan. So a very black thing to do, stealing people's other creatures on the way to the graveyard.
This card's sweet, but it really scares me because I don't see much incidental life gain in this precon. So I know, like, you play this and you hex and you're going to, like, I'm going to want to cast all the creatures. There's no way I'm going to pass up that free value, and I'm going to end up at, like, 2 life and then die. So keep that in mind, that there isn't a ton of ways to gain back your life. So if you go too far on this, you might put yourself in a position where you're gonna end up dying to your own Karazikar.
Look, there's actually a really good combo, which is Pontiff of Blight, which has Extort, so you can pay mana to gain some life back, but it gives all your creatures Extort. So if you steal your opponent's creatures and have like a big army of creatures, they all have Extort, and you can try to drain your way back up to a healthy life total.
Yeah, they kind of pay for themselves. You still have to have all that black mana to Extort, but there is a little bit of synergy here. I'm also
or Zaka Relic is also in there. One of the mana rocks you can sacrifice to gain 3 life, so that helps a little.
It's definitely not my top contender for the commander of this deck, even if it was Rakdos color. But I think it actually works a lot better in the 99 because that 7 mana is a lot. I would much prefer reanimating it or something than hard casting it. But I mean, it's still a big effect. I still enjoy it. And sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, yeah, like this is a very, very good card just for the 99. So I agree with you there.
Yeah. And also, as a resident lore nerd, I don't know anything about this Lorcan character, but warlocks are people who basically make a pact with an otherworldly being to get power. So you go into a deal with an otherworldly being, you say, I'm going to get some of your power, and in return, I'll do something for you. That's how it usually works. So Lorcan's a warlock collector, so he has a lot of pacts with a lot of different warlocks, and he probably collects when they die. That seems to be what the theme is here. Like, the creature dies, it gets exiled, and it gets returned to Lorcan, so he collects on the payment after that.
Comes due.
Yeah. Also, one cool thing about the difference between D&D and Magic the Gathering, canonically, Wizards of the Coast didn't like crossing the streams with Dungeons & Dragons and Magic the Gathering, so they purposely made sure that some stuff in Dungeons & Dragons is different in Magic the Gathering. And one thing they did very differently is they actually swapped devils and demons around. Historically, devils are lawful evil, and they're very black aligned in Dungeons and Dragons. But in Magic the Gathering, they purposely made devils actually red aligned, very chaotic evil, which is what demons would be in Dungeons and Dragons. So they literally swapped the two around. And you see Lorcan here is a devil. He's black. He's very lawful-y. He makes pacts. But if this was Innistrad, for example, he would actually be a demon, which is kind of neat. I don't know. I like it. All right, moving on. We got another sweet new rare card, Bag of Devouring. This is a black artifact that says whenever you sacrifice another non-token artifact or creature, you exile it. You can also pay 2 and tap it to sacrifice another artifact or creature and draw a card. And then you can pay 3 and sacrifice it to roll a d10. This is the first time we're doing dice rolling here. Roll a d10, 10-sided die. Return up to X cards from among cards exiled with Bag of Devouring to their owner's hands, where X is the result. So this card looks pretty bananas. First of all, it says sacrifice another artifact or creature. So it has some versatility here. It's good with artifacts. It's good with creature decks. So it's definitely very much like a sacrifice matters archetype deck. It's really good with treasure tokens, which again, Prosper makes very easily. You draw a lot of cards for very mana efficient amounts of mana, just 2 each time. And then when you pay 3 mana, you can get like 1 to 10 things back, which I think is actually really good. It's just like a nice sack outlet. It can sacrifice your excess treasure tokens or your creatures that want to die. You draw a bunch of cards. When you're done drawing cards, boom, you get a bunch of stuff back.
I don't know how I feel about I guess the card's pretty good, but like all around, I'm so excited to see D10s and D20s being brought in, because I've always been like kind of like D&D adjacent. So using my D20s and my like all my dice, like my little dice bag literally has the D&D stuff on it because that was sent to me. But yeah, like the thing here is being being near all the D20s and stuff like that. It's cool to see like them actually being put to use. So I'm excited to get those rolling on the table and stuff like that.
And then D&D is a hop and a skip away, Krim. You'll be one of us soon.
Yeah, I feel like I'm very much so not that far away from just playing it. I mean, I've played it once as a Warlock, so cool to see these D10s and all these things. And yeah, this is sweet because it reminds me of Bag of Holding, but for sacrificing. So it's pretty cool.
It's also an item in Dungeons & Dragons, obviously. And yeah, it is very similar to Bag of Holding. And it's kind of like a cursed item in Dungeons & Dragons where it masquerades as a Bag of Holding. And then you realize much later that it's actually a Bag of Devouring. So all that stuff you put in there hoping to have nice little portable storage. Oh yeah, those items are gone now. Oops, daisy. So that's a little lore tidbit as well.
All right.
So this card's pretty tricky for new players. It has a lot of text on it. So normally when you want to sacrifice things, you sacrifice disposable things like treasure tokens or maybe creature tokens that Piper of the Swarm made or something like that. But those things that get sacrificed, you won't be able to return them when you sack the Bag of Devouring, right? So you're just sacrificing them to draw a card. Right. Don't be shocked if you're sitting there sacrificing token after token, and then when it comes time to sack the Bag of Devouring, you roll a D10, get a 10, and then not have much to return because you spent all your time sacking tokens. There's a little tricksy part to this. I do like the go big or go home aspect. You sack the bag, maybe you get a 1. Maybe you get a 10. Nobody knows. We're gonna have to rely on Lady Luck here. So I actually kind of like that. I think that's fun, and it brings the D&D aspect to Magic really well.
It's like the highest variance. It's one of the highest variance cards I can ever think of, honestly. Like usually in Magic the Gathering we have a flip a coin, right? And you could flip a couple coins, but this is essentially like, I mean, you could get one thing, you could get 10 things back. That's like such a huge variance that it's going to be really fun. It's going to allow some really cool moments, I think, in our games where like somebody rolls and we really need like 2 things back, and then boom, you get like 10, and you're like, whoa. So I think it's also important to point out that
its first ability is just a static ability. Whenever you sacrifice another non-token or artifact or creature, you exile it. So that doesn't mean you have to sack it to Bag of Devouring. That can be sacrificed to any effects, and there are other cards in the deck that will cause you to sacrifice a creature, so that might be the way that you end up filling up the Bag of Devouring and end up getting stuff back from it. Because I definitely agree you're going to be mostly like paying 2 to sack a treasure and draw a card, but you might end up with some stuff up under it incidentally almost, just from like playing your removal spells and some of the other cards in the deck.
All right, moving on. We got a new sorcery, so let's hear it, Seth.
Well, speaking of maybe sacrificing your own creatures, we have Dance Macabre, a 5-mana black sorcery that says each player sacrifices a non-token creature. You roll a d20, add the toughness of the creatures you sacrificed, of the creature you sacrificed this way, and then if you end up with 1 to 14, you get to return a creature that was put into the graveyard from the Dance Macabre's ability onto the battlefield. If you get a 15 plus, you get 2 creatures back. So essentially a sort of expensive mass edict, but you're going to get at least 1 creature back from the graveyard and maybe 2 creatures back from the graveyard, which is pretty powerful, and it's not restricted. So you can sacrifice your biggest, most expensive creature just to up your die roll essentially, and know that you can get that back along with one of your opponent's things as long as you get a pretty decent roll with your d20.
Such a cool card, right? It's so flavorful. I love this card. I think this is yeah, like much like Seth had mentioned, it's a good way to reanimate numerous targets, and rolling a d20 along the way makes it even more fun.
The only thing I would say is it's probably going to be a little high variance, because one of the downsides about edicts is your opponent gets to control them, so they're going to be incentivized to choose their smallest, least powerful creatures. So there's going to be some times when this is insane and everyone's only got a big creature and you get 2 huge things from the graveyard. There's going to be other times when all your opponents have a Llanowar Elves or a little 1/1 mana dork on the battlefield, and you end up not really getting that much value out of it for 5 mana. So I guess that fits with the die rolling theme, though. It's just a really high variance removal spell.
I do like that it dodges non-token creature, it dodges token creatures. So like if you are up against a token deck, like there's like a bunch of saplings, 1/1 saplings that are just going to be buffers for this, but like at least it dodges those. But yeah, there's going to be like Llanowar Elves or Eternal Witnesses and stuff like that can be a bummer, but it's so high variance. That's kind of the point.
Yeah, I mean, the variance is lessened because you do have some big toughness creatures in the deck. Our commander is 4 toughness. The Eye Beholder's 5 toughness. We have Pontiff at 7 toughness. We have Italy at 6 toughness. So you can stack it in your favor a little bit by sacking one of the big bodies to hit that 15 plus. Now, if you're like me and unfortunate, you might sack like 7 toughness, roll a 1, and be super sad. But, that's how it goes.
That's true. Also, just quick ad, lore-wise, this is a spell for wizards. And maybe other casters can do it too, but the sorcerers here are going to be spells from Dungeons and Dragons as well, which is a nice little tidbit. And speaking of stuff that we want sacrifice to Dance Macabre to get higher value out of it, Crim, there's a pretty sweet creature that has 6 toughness. So it seems like the ideal candidate to sacrifice.
This is a creature that's going to be a favorite for Richard and I for its 2 types. But Death Tyrant, 4 and a black. It's a Beholder. I love that. Skeleton. Richard loves that. And then, of course, Menace. Negative Energy Cone. Whenever an attacking creature you control or a blocking creature an opponent controls dies, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. You can also pay 5 and a black to return Death Tyrant from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. So you can definitely sacrifice this. It has great toughness, but on top of that, this card on its own, it can kind of just spawn an army whenever your opponent is like blocking and whatever, right? Like if any of their creatures dies, this spawns an army. It reminds me of another card in Magic, but yeah, this is a really cool way to generate an army, get sack fodder, all this stuff, and it kind of synergizes really well with whatever the bag is and all of that. So this is a sweet card. It's another eye monster, so I love it.
It is. It's a Death Tyrant that's like the special when Beholders are reanimated. they come back as Death Tyrants. And Beholders are incredibly powerful. Death Tyrants are also incredibly powerful as well. They still have some of their magic. And while Beholders fire off anti-magic cones, energy cones, these fire negative energy cones, which is like powered with necromantic powers and can spawn zombies like this ability. So that's very sweet. I really like the lore. I'm kind of going a little bit.
I have a science question for you, Tome. Do eyeballs have skeletons? How did we get a skeletal eyeball here? It's like
I assume the eyeball is magic. It's
actually
shooting
just
magic.
like a perfect sphere of bone that floats, and there's like an eye socket in it.
Look, we're talking about magic. It
also has
shoots a
teeth.
negative energy cone, and it's floating. All right, Richard, are we gonna pick apart?
No, it only has menace. It's not floating. There's no flying. It only has menace.
Which is
Levitating.
weird because it should have flying.
Look, it flies, but it can't fly really high off the ground.
Yeah.
So that's
it's
the main
floating.
issue.
That's different.
Yeah.
We don't have a
That is
float
actually-
ability in Magic yet.
Yeah, floaty.
I think floating is pretty much menace, right?
Basically.
Well, I'd be scared
as far-
of this.
As far as Magic play, this card actually has some sweet synergies because you can perhaps sacrifice a creature that you attack with, even if your opponent doesn't block it. That still counts as it being attacking. Like, it just has to be declared as an attacker. So you can maybe make a 1/1 token, which the deck has a few different cards that make relatively useless 1/1 tokens, but make like a 1/1 rat token, attack with it, sacrifice it to your Bag of Devouring, draw a card, and upgrade it into a zombie along the way. So there are some really cool little tricks and synergies that this card offers, I think, to the deck.
Yeah. And the fact that you can just keep reoccurring this is pretty sweet.
Yeah, you're pretty free to slam it into big creatures, knowing that if it dies, you're going to get a zombie out of it, and you can just put it back into play from your graveyard.
Wait, that doesn't work because Bag of Holding exiles, right? It replaces the death trigger.
Oh, dies.
Oh, no, you don't want to... Oh.
Attacking
Wait,
you
no.
control.
Yeah, it dies.
Only if you sacrifice it. I'm so
Oh.
confused.
So if you sacrifice with Bag of Holding, it doesn't work. But if it dies in combat, it's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
You want to sacrifice tokens, I think, in combat, not this, yeah.
All right. Well, moving on. I told you about how like Beholders are insane and also incredibly paranoid. So Richard, tell us about Fevered Suspicion, which is basically showcasing what happens when a Beholder is getting a little bit too paranoid, maybe goes off with the pew-pew lasers a bit too much.
Fevered Suspicion, a sorcery at 8 mana value, so 6 black and a red. Each opponent exiles cards from the top of the library until they exile a non-land card. You may cast any number of spells from among those non-land cards without paying their mana costs. And it has Rebound, so at the beginning of your next upkeep, you may cast this card from exile without paying its mana costs, which conveniently works with your commander.
Ah, it counts as playing it.
This is so cool. It casts our opponent's best cards. Yeah, or I mean random cards, which is amazing because the randomness. But it casts your opponent's cards and then it does it again. It's a very, I think this is a very expensive spell, but my gosh, is this a fun card.
I think it's definitely fun. And it does have some synergies, like with Prosper, but kind of, maybe this whole deck is, maybe the theme to go along with the die rolling is just the high variance, because you kind of have that same issue. Like, you spend this for 8 mana, maybe you're going to get, Craterhoof Behemoths and these huge expensive dragons, and it's going to be amazing. Maybe you're going to get a bunch of mana rocks and a bunch of, mana dorks, and you're going to be really, really sad. So, but maybe that's just what this deck's supposed to be like. And I think that kind of captures the D&D die rolling and like a flavor that they were going for with the deck. So I don't know. You're either going to be really happy or really sad when you cast this card. There's not much in between with this one.
Yeah, this card is a mess. Is it like we did Quandrix recently where we're like, whoa, all these cards are so busted so fast. This one is all about like, it could be busted. Maybe. How lucky are you feeling today when you cast it? This 8 mana spell could just win you the game. Or it can like hit like a counter spell and a Llanowar elf, who knows? But Either way, it's pretty fun to just like cast it, and then there's gonna be like the suspense of revealing everybody's libraries and stuff. So that's like a cool design. Not incredibly powerful, not super consistent, and that's kind of the point. It's all about embracing chaos, which I really love. All right, moving on, we have a pretty sweet equipment. This is Fiendlash. Seth, tell us about it. Or, no, I have to tell us about it. I'm going to tell you about it. This is Fiendlash. This is a 2-mana artifact equipment, 1 and a red. Equipped creature gets +2/+0 and has reach. And whenever equipped creature is dealt damage, it deals damage equal to its power to target player or planeswalker. And it has an equip cost of 2 and a red. So basically, it kind of reminds me of like a Stuffy Doll or like a Brash Taunter effect, where you know you want to deal damage to this creature to redirect it to a player or planeswalker. But even so, even without like mass burn abilities like Blasphemous Act or Starve Extinction or whatever, it makes blocking this like a really, really tough call. Because if you block it, somebody's going to take a lot of that damage anyway. And if you have any planeswalkers on the battlefield, ooh boy, those are planeswalkers that are going to be sweating as soon as they see a Fiendlash on the battlefield.
Yeah, I think it works really well with like the Death Tyrant attacking plan that the deck has, where you want to throw this on a creature, you attack. If your opponent doesn't block, they're taking damage equal to its power. If they do block and your creature takes damage, you're still kind of getting through that damage. So it seems like a really good way to close out games through blockers, essentially, once you get an opponent low on life.
I'm just checking.
There's nothing to.
They don't have Blasphemous
synergize with it. I checked.
No, I don't think there's anything.
In fact, most creatures have menace or flying or something, so like it's even hard to get them to block.
You can
except the eyes.
It's a cool card.
Yeah, I was looking at the list, and I was like, is there anything? Oh wait, no. There's a new card. There's a new card later on, or maybe should we just talk about it now? No, that would ruin everything. We have one card that's a board wipe that could like actually trigger it pretty nicely, but we'll get to that later.
I think it's also worth pointing out that it's damage equal to the creature's power rather than the amount of damage it takes. So if you Blasphemous Act, you're not getting 13, you're getting whatever the power is of the creature that you Blasphemous Act. So it is a little bit like Stuffy Doll, but there is a bit of a twist. I don't think it's as combo-y as like a Stuffy Doll might be.
Oh, this card's not great then. Oh, whatever.
Nope, it is not.
But it's a whip of bones. It's someone's spine.
Yes, what's the lore, Tomer? What's the D&D lore?
I don't know. It might be a magic item. I don't know. All right, they can't all be winners. All right, moving on. Next up, we have this one is legit pretty darn good though. Seth, tell us about Grim Hireling.
How do I get all the Tieflings? How does that keep happening?
Tiefling, you still said it.
Grim. We have Grim Hireling.
Crim
Hireling. The Grim Hireling. 4 mana, 3 and a black. You get a Tiefling rogue, or a Tiefling, apparently, if we want to be all correct about it. It's a 3/2. Whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, you make 2 treasures. Then you pay a black mana, sacrifice X treasures to give target creature -X until end of turn. Activate it only as a sorcery. This card's great. The last one might not have been too exciting. This card's really, really good. The way it's worded, it triggers whenever you hit a player. In Commander, you got 3 opponents. If you can spread the love and hit each of your opponents, that's potentially 6 treasures this is making every single turn. That's like smothering Tithe. Plus, that's an insane amount of ramp on this creature. And then being able to sack the treasures for removal not only works well with all these treasures you're making, you might be able to kill something every turn if you're getting 6 treasures. It also synergizes with a bunch of other cards in the deck, like Prosper, that make treasures. So it's a repeatable removal spell that can take down whatever you want to. This card's so good. So good.
It doesn't even tap. Like, that's the thing. You can just do it multiple times across, like, different targets.
Yeah, so, for 1 mana.
Right.
For 1 mana.
That is really good.
Yeah, I think this is one of the most powerful cards in the deck, and probably one of the cards that, like, even if you're not interested in the pre-constructed deck itself, like buying the entire thing, you'll probably want to pick this up as like a single or something, order it as a single for something. Because like
this rogue.
Yeah, like treasures are such a common thing that are being made, not just with like our Commander Prosper in this deck, but like, some of the best cards like Dockside Extortionist make a lot of treasures, and this synergizes really well with it. So this card looks really sweet. Just like up to 6 treasure tokens per combat, and then just turning that into like actual removal multiple times is great. Also, it's a rogue, and rogues are class in Dungeons and Dragons. And usually, if you play a rogue, the most stereotypical thing is your rogue is obsessed with loot. This is obsessed with loot, and I love the flavor on that as well.
And they're usually unblockable, so they go right on through.
Maybe you put it in the Anawan deck. We'll see.
I don't know what you're talking about.
All right, we'll move on to another iconic spell that all tieflings have in Dungeons and Dragons. This is Hellish Rebuke. So, Krim, tell us about it.
Hellish Rebuke, 2 and a black, an instant spell. Until end of turn, permanents your opponent's control gain when this permanent deals damage to the player who casts Hellish Rebuke. Sacrifice this permanent, you lose 2 life. So, if this isn't just the greatest like gotcha card, right after they do a swing on people, or they swing on you, you could really politic like, hey, don't attack me. Don't attack me. I'm serious. Do not attack me. You'll take the damage still, which is going to hurt, but they'll also take the damage back and sacrifice their board. So this seems pretty sweet. I like this as just a fun way to just really politic people into making it so that, everyone at your pod to kind of just leave you alone. Unless they kill you, because, if you're going for the king, you best aim for the head. Because, right, Tomer?
Oh, boy. Yeah,
Also,
this card is a cream card, for sure.
It
I
is.
love that you keep getting, like, the most creamiest cards. We didn't build it this way. It just happens.
I love this whole deck. I think this deck is amazing. This is such a me deck.
Well, also, like the D&D lore-wise, all tieflings have this as a racial spell. It's just like whenever you take damage, as a reaction, you can make them take a bunch of damage in response. And all warlocks get, or it's a warlock spell too, so double the callback with this warlocky deck. So I like it. I like it a bunch.
We burn together.
Yeah. All right. Next up, we have a really cool new removal spell that also synergizes really well in the deck. Richard, tell us about Hurl Through Hell.
All right. We have Hurl Through Hell. It's 4 mana value, 2 generic, a black and a red. It's an instant. You exile target creature. Until the end of your next turn, you may cast that card, and you may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast that spell. So it's removal. And then there's a little upside here where you can just use your mana to play that creature. And again, if you have Prosper out, it's a double here. You get the synergies. But Rakdos, stealing people's creatures.
Until the end of your next turn, too, you can cast that. So like that's nice. It isn't like until the end of the current turn. So that's gonna be pretty major. And I love this. And it's an exile spell. This is such a good removal spell for a Crimmy deck. I love it.
Yeah, it's still fine just killing something for 4 mana. It really does hit all the flavor points in the deck. It works with the commanders of the deck. It works with the like stealing your opponent's stuff theme. This card is like, I don't know, if there was a mascot of the deck, I think Hurl Through Hell would be my pick. It just like really describes what the deck's trying to do. And like you were saying, Tomer, exiling something for 4 mana is not bad, and exiling is pretty relevant in Commander because a lot of decks are, recurring their creatures from the graveyard, have synergies like that. That's a way to get rid of them forever, which is really nice.
Yeah, like this to me looks a lot more than just an exiling a card, by the way. This is exiling a creature and then also like essentially drawing a spell or drawing a creature, because next turn I know what I'm doing, right? I'm going to play this creature unless it like is absolutely like not useful at all.
Mm-hmm. And also the spell itself, I do remember it as one of the most iconic spells a warlock has access to in Dungeons and Dragons. If they are of, I think, an Infernal Patron, one of their capstone, one of their highest level abilities is they just like target a creature and they literally send them through hell for a turn. and they just like experience horrible horrors. They're banished to hell for X amount of time. I'm not sure how long. They come back, they take a ton of damage as well. And it's just a very unpleasant experience, as you can see. As you can see it depicted in the artwork. So that's just fantastic as well. All right, moving on. We have a very unique, very Dungeons and Dragons-y board wipe. And this is just depicting, your average adventure, as it were. It's very reckless. This is Reckless Endeavor. Richard, tell us about it.
Okay, we have Reckless Endeavor, 5 red sorcery. Roll 2 d12s and choose one result. Reckless Endeavor deals damage equal to that result to each creature. Then create a number of treasure tokens equal to the other result. So you get to roll 2 dice. One of them just hits all creatures. The other one is how many treasures you make.
This is going to feel so bad when I roll a 1.
Double 1. Snake eyes. Got it.
That's kind of winning.
Even an average roll, though, like let's say you're rolling d12, so what, like 6s right in the middle. If you roll 2 6s, let's say, which obviously that's not going to happen every time, 6 damage to everything and 6 treasures, that almost makes it a free spell. You're almost getting all of your mana back in the form of treasures right away. Plus, you can kind of manipulate it based on the situation. Like, maybe there's a bunch of 1/1 tokens. You can use your little roll to get rid of, all the small creatures and then get a ton of treasures and have a ridiculous amount of mana for the next turn. So 7 mana is a lot, but I think it's actually a pretty powerful effect. Although, like many of the cards, it is high variant. Like, you can get unlucky and roll Snake Eyes, and then you're going to be really, 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 really sad.
Yeah, this card has a lot of variants, which will make it, again, probably not the best choice if you're going for like the most optimal cards, board wipes in your deck. Like, it's not going to replace Blasphemous Act in terms of like sheer power, but this is all what D&D is about. This encapsulates Dungeons and Dragons so well. You're rolling high variance. There is, again, like Seth said, it's like there's a little bit of control there because you choose which one is going to be the treasures and which one's going to be the burn. And it's also going to be kind of nice if you make like a bunch of treasures and then you play the Grim Hireling afterwards, and you get some more synergies there too. So I like it. It's very much Dungeons and Dragons.
It's the showmanship of this card is going to be absolutely wild.
Yes.
Everybody's going to hold their breath.
Yeah. I love these dice rolling cards. All right, moving on. We have another enchantment, and this one depicts a usual issue in Adventuring Party. When you go on adventures, you find a lot of loot, and then you have to divvy it up somehow. And there's often going to be some arguments on how that loot is shared. So I'm going to tell you about Share the Spoils, which is a 2-mana red enchantment, 1 in a red. And it says, when it enters the battlefield or an opponent loses the game, exile the top card of each player's library. During each player's turn, that player may play a land or cast a spell from among cards exiled with Share the Spoils, and they may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast that spell. When they do, exile the top card of their library. So this is kind of really fun because at the very beginning, you're not really getting all this value for yourself. You kind of share it amongst the group unless like you have a ton of mana, and then maybe you can get more value than the rest of the table. But it is a form of card advantage. It is a little bit of a chaos, which I really like here too, where everybody's going to be scrambling for the best spell to suit their needs. And it's a 2-mana enchantment, so it comes down early. It's not a huge mana investment for you. Even if you find it late, it probably means that like you play it, if you have like 7 mana or something, you pay 2 mana, drop this on the battlefield, you're going to get a lot of value out of it before your opponents can get that much value out of it themselves. And then you keep exiling the top card of the library, and that's going to keep the fun going. So I'm excited for the chaos that ensues from this.
This is definitely going in a chaos deck. Right? Like this is such a fun card.
It's a card that doesn't have like a ton of synergy in the deck, but it does work well with Prosper because you are playing a card from exile, so it is working with the main commander of the deck. But this is one that I think is kind of like a group hug or a chaos card if you're upgrading or throwing it in another deck. I do really like that it's 2 mana. I think that's the big selling point. We've seen like Knowledge Pool kind of do something similar, but it's 6 mana. The nice thing about this is, as Tomer said, in the late game, you can probably play the first spell out from under it and pick the best of the loot and use that to your advantage, which I think is a pretty big deal. It's a card that hopefully, even though it does help everyone and is kind of symmetrical, you might be able to manipulate it so it's helping you a little bit more.
Yeah, you could do the rogue thing and pretend you're part of the party and then drop like a homeward path, which isn't part of the deck, but you can easily put that in, which lets you gain control of all permanents you own. So you can thank your opponents for casting all your spells for you and then just like take them all. So yeah, you can do some weird shenanigans with this card. And the way it's worded, it always keeps cards available. Like you can't like be the last one to the table and like lose all the cards. And whenever someone plays something, it replaces. When someone dies, it replaces. So there's always stuff in the grab bag. This adventure was very it paid off very well. There's lots to take from here.
Yeah, I will be so happy. Like you said, Homer Path. Homer Path works with creatures. Brand, also a red card. If you want to add it here, it returns all your permanents back to you. Nobody else gets their permanents back. Only you do. So there's some shenanigans you can build off this. Not in the deck, but it already works with Prosper, so it's very sweet. All right, moving on. We have Wild Magic Sorcerer, which again is a class in Dungeons and Dragons. Sorcerer is the class. The subclass is Wild Magic, and it's all about chaos. It's like you cast a spell, something random happens. So, Seth, tell us about what Wild Magic Sorcerer does.
Ooh, so Wild Magic Sorcerer, 4 mana, 3 and a red. You get an Orc Shaman. It's a 4/3, and it says the first spell that you cast from exile each turn has Cascade. If you don't want to Cascade, basically you reveal cards from your deck until you hit one that has a lesser mana value than the one you cast, and you get to cast that one for free. This card's really powerful. It obviously synergizes with Prosper. That's the main combo, because that's exiling a card that you can cast each turn. Even if you just cast that, you're getting basically 2 cards instead of 1, and one of them you get to cast for free. But there's also a bunch of other stuff in the deck. We have Cascade. Cascade casts spells from exile, so it essentially doubles up cards like Throes of Chaos or Bituminous Blast that are in the deck that Cascade. We have Rebound spells. Rebound. On the Rebound, it casts from Cascade. If you cast a Fervored Suspicion, when it comes off Rebound, that's an 8 mana spell. You could be hitting almost anything in your entire deck and getting it for free just from having this on the battlefield. So the card's really good. It synergizes with the commander and a bunch of other stuff, and it offers a ton of free value. Again, it's card draw and ramp put together. That's what makes the Cascade mechanic so powerful, because you cast it for free and you're drawing an extra card. That's what commander decks want to do. So I think this is another one of the more powerful and synergistic cards in the entire deck, really. And
it's so cheap. It's only like 4 mana. Usually something like this is attached to like some kind of like 6 to 7 mana permanent, right? So this is only 4, yeah. So I really like that.
It kind of reminds me of like mono red Rashmi, Eternity's Crafter, because I think Rashmi has a very similar style of card where it's like she's kind of almost like Cascade, where like if you reveal the top card of your library, if it's like convert mana cost less or mana value less, then you get to cast it. But if not, you put it into your hand. This one will always cast something, and it's just in red. It doesn't have to be in Simic. So I can even see this card being like yoinked out of the Precon and added to a deck that's more like draw go, so you're always casting spells every single turn and you're maximizing that sort of deck as well. So I feel like it's cool here, but it's also good in other decks as well, and it's just like a high power card.
Yeah.
All right, next up, we have another magic item from Dungeons and Dragons. This is Bucknard's Everfull Purse. Krim, tell us about this one.
Bucknard's Everfull Purse, 2 mana, artifact, pay 1 and tap it, roll a d4 and create a number of treasure tokens equal to the result. That player to your right gains control of Bucknard's Everfull Purse. That's just a lot to say.
Bucknard.
Okay.
Rolls off
Bucknard's
the tongue.
Everfull purse. Okay. Easy. I love this. This is just like such a fun party mechanic, right? Like this is such a party thing that you can throw into the game. And rolling a d4. Anytime you get to roll dice and make some treasures, pass it along. This is gonna be a good time because you know for a matter of fact somebody's gonna roll real poor, and they're gonna just pass it over, right? So like this just seems great. Like everything so far in this deck is just so much fun, and it's actually it could turn your commander tables and pods into like just a full-on party game. And I'm kind of here for this.
It's a bit of a group hug.
Yeah, everybody's group hug. Everybody's group hug.
I think that the deck naturally breaks the symmetry a little bit because most people probably are not playing cards that synergize with treasures. In this deck, we've been talking about them all through this video, like sacrifice treasures to kill things and other abilities like that, sacrifice treasures to draw cards. So even though, sure, everyone is theoretically going to benefit the same with a bunch of luck thrown in, but everyone's going to be getting treasures, hopefully you'll be able to use them more effectively than your opponent. So even though it's symmetrical, you kind of naturally break the symmetry, I think, a little bit.
Yeah. You're hoping at least that you edge up just a little bit more than your opponents do, but regardless, still very much so like a light group hug you kind of feel here.
If you're also feeling like a meanie, if you have Bag of Devouring on the battlefield, you can activate the purse, and in response to the ability, you sack it, right? So you get some treasures, you draw a card, and your opponents get nothing.
They don't get to use Bucknard's Everfull purse.
Can you guess what the magic item does?
Does it fill up with coins forever? It's bottomless?
Yes, every
It's
dawn. It has it in the flavor text, which I love.
It's even Everfull.
It literally says what the magic item does in the flavor text, which is like perfect. I love it. All right, I'm putting this one in Zedru, by the way, 100%. All right, moving on. This is a card that I know. Okay, I don't know how we arrange it so perfectly, but I know this is a card that Richard really likes. This is Ebony Fly. This is another magic item from Dungeons & Dragons that is now card form in Magic the Gathering. So, Richard, tell us about Ebony Fly.
All right. It's a fly that adds mana somehow. It's a 2 mana value. It enters the battlefield tapped, and you can tap it to add a colorless mana. So it is a 2 mana artifact mana rock. And then you can pay 4 generic mana to activate it. You roll a d6 until end of turn. You may have Ebony Fly become an XX insect artifact creature with flying, where X is a result. And as a bonus, when Ebony Fly attacks another target, attacking creature gains flying until end of turn.
Fledgling hatchling can get that flying. This card is so good. This card is so cool. I'm putting this in like every one of my decks. It's not only a mana rock, but it's a mana rock that can kind of become a body that flies.
It can be a 6/6.
Yeah, this is such a good mana rock, right? Like, I love this. It doesn't make a color or anything like that, but holy cow, is this sweet for 2 mana.
I mean, go ahead, Domer.
It comes into play tap. That's like the main problem. Right? It's like not Mind Stone, not Everflowing Chalice, not Thought Vessel. There's like a bunch that I would run over it, but even so, like eventually there's going to be a 2 mana rock that I want in. Like I need like 10, mana rocks in my non-green decks. This is definitely making the cut, I think, pretty easily. Yeah. It's a threat. It's a freaking threat that gives evasion.
Right? That's so sick. Hold on now.
You say threat. It gives you It gives you invincibility. Okay, I hold 4 mana. Are you going to risk me rolling a 6 to kill your 5/5? Like, are you really going to take that risk? Even though, in all likelihood, the average is 3, right? If you have a 5/5, it's going elsewhere. You're not going to risk being that one guy that got by Ebony Fly, right? So, this is like the ultimate defensive mana rock, and I really like it. You just hold it there. You're like, what you gonna do? You want to test Lady Luck today?
Well, question though, if I don't like my result and I need a mana sink, can I pay 4 to roll again?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, the fun is endless then. Or it could be worse.
I am not as high on this fly as the rest of you all.
I like it.
I think it's fine. It's not a bad card. It is a 2-mana mana rock, but do you really want to leave 4 mana up to try to play defense? I thought you were the one that argued against leaving up 2 mana for counterspell because that's way too clunky, Richard. You want to leave up 4 mana?
It's an option.
You want to turn on the fly?
80% of the time, it's just a 2-mana mana rock. Like, that's not bad, right? And then in the other times, where you have like a 10/10, like just vanilla creature, right? You could just, roll a 6, give them both fly, and hit someone for 16 out of nowhere, right? Like, it has a lot of flexibility for a 2-mana mana rock, which is a highly playable card, right? It doesn't make colored mana, right? So it is not like the greatest card of all time, but it is still a very strong card. And you laugh, but someone's gonna die to an Ebony Fly.
It'll probably be me. It'll probably be
die to Ebony Fly.
If you have that excess mana, you're late in the game, you need some threats, you need some pressure, the Ebony Fly, it's going to get there. And also we talked about we have 2 possible commanders for this deck. Not as good with Prosper, no synergies there, but with Karazikar, if that's your commander, attacking is now very beneficial for you. This is a body that, or it's a mana rock, very respectable mana rock, does a good job. And then later on, if you need to draw a card and you need to hit with something, Ebony Fly's got your
More
back.
importantly, we can fix WotC's mistakes and give our eyeballs flying.
Yeah.
You can now have a flying beholder. Okay,
Yeah.
This is the most important aspect of the card.
Right.
I should also mention that this card and the last one ever, Bucknard's Everfull Purse, these are both cards that you're going to be finding in amongst multiple of the commander decks. It's not exclusive to Planar Portal. These 2, the ones that had the uncommon symbol, these ones are available in multiple of the Precons. So if you're desperately looking for an Ebony Fly, fear not. You don't need just not to find it just in Planar Portal.
I'm not even joking. The card is sick.
All right, moving on. We have another card that you can find in the Precons, or the pre-constructed commander decks. This is Underdark Rift, which showcases a very cool area in the Forgotten Realms called the Underdark, where it's basically like, imagine just like an entire new world that just lives underground. And this is where you'll find dark elves and mushrooms and flumps and holders, mind flayers, all those cool things all live underground in the Underdark. Ooh. And Underdark Rift, let's hear it up. Let's hear from Seth.
Ooh, so Underdark Rift, it's a land. It comes into play untapped. It adds a colorless mana. Then you can pay 5, tap it, exile it, roll a d10, put target artifact, creature, or planeswalker into its owner's library just beneath the top X cards of its library, where X is the result, can only do it as a sorcery. So essentially, a land that works as temporary, but pretty good temporary removal for an artifact, creature, or planeswalker. I think this card is actually really, really powerful. I think this is a card that is decent in this deck. I mean, just lands that add value are good in general. I think it's especially exciting outside of the Precon, where there's some colors that really struggle to kill an artifact, let's say. Like black, for example. Red is a color that's really good at killing artifacts. That's why the Precon has some other options for it. But I think in the broader game of Commander, having a land that kind of breaks the color pie to some extent. And if your color is bad at killing artifacts, this land can get it done. Plus, it has the flexibility to hitting creatures or planeswalkers. That seems pretty huge on a land that comes into play untapped, with the only drawback really being that it just adds colorless mana.
I think it's all right.
Yeah, I think it's okay.
Is it better than the Fly?
No.
Oh, it's so much better than the Fly.
No.
The Fly is amazing. Are you joking me? The Fly is sick.
You're going to be using this to get rid of the Fly. Okay?
Yeah, that's why it's better. It can beat the
We've
kill
run
the
out of
Fly.
all available options. Pay 6 mana, exile this, get rid of the Fly once and for all.
Well, not even once and for all. For some
For
random
X
number
amount
of
of
turns between 1 and 10.
1 to 10 amount of turns. I can see this pretty decent in like a mono green heavy ramp deck. Yeah, also this deck it's fine too. But like a mono green ramp deck that will be like, all right, well, I don't have any good ways of dealing with a creature right now, but I have 6 mana. Boom. and just, or 5 mana plus this, and boom, you got rid of something temporarily or something like that. It's cute. I like it. It's fine in like monocolor and 2-color decks.
I mean, I'm sorry to ask this, but like I only know because of it's so funny that I know so much about D&D from not D&D. Is this where Stranger Things got the Upside Down from? Because this is where the Mind Flayer is, which is also in Stranger Things and stuff like that. Like this,
I guess so.
Yeah.
the Upside Down in Stranger Things though is like a parallel universe or something like that. Right. This one is literally like it's underground. Like it's like a giant hollow, like a giant underground place.
Because the Mind Flayer is here, right? Because the Mind Flayer was in season 2 of Stranger Things.
Yes. So Mind Flayers, you would find them.
Spoilers.
You would find. Yeah.
Oh, get out of here!
Oh, no.
It's only like 8 years old. Think
yeah. Okay, there's a grace period. Okay, and then you.
Unless you're gonna give me spoilers about, no, never mind. I'm not even gonna spoil anything else. That would be terrible. All right, moving on. We have the personification of the Warlock class. Like we mentioned earlier, a lot of these cards are depicting Warlock spells prosper. The commander is a Warlock. And now this is the personification of the Warlock class, which is a brand new enchantment. And this is a card that you're going to find also in the standard set Adventures in the Forgotten Realms. So, wait, who was it on?
I did the last one.
All right.
Yeah.
So, Krim?
So Krim, tell us about the Warlock class.
I will. This is the only class I've ever played in D&D for one campaign. It is 1 black mana. It's an enchantment. You can gain the next level as a sorcery to add its ability. So its first one is, at the beginning of your end step, if a creature died this turn, each opponent loses 1 life. Pay 2 to get to level 2. When this class becomes level 2, look at the top 3 cards of your library, put 1 of them into your hand and the rest into your graveyard. That's pretty good. And then 6 and a black to get to level 3. At the beginning of your end step, each opponent loses life equal to the life they lost this turn. Wow. So, like, this is just cool, right? Like, now we get to see these class enchantments. Yeah, like, I mean, I believe this is a part of the normal set, right? As we can see from the logo and whatnot, but like this is cool. I love seeing this is not like a saga, so it's not like how we draw a card and then it activates and then it goes away. I think this just stays on the board, right? This is just an enchantment that stays on the board as you continue to level it up and it sits there. That's pretty cool. And so does this ability happen every time as long as it's out?
Wait, what ability?
Well,
so
I think
that the first 2 abilities are kind of static abilities. The second level, that is more of a triggered ability. So you only get that one time. But the other ones, they just sit out and keep happening. We might need to confirm with the rules. I don't think that's been announced yet. I would be very surprised. I think that you can probably only do it once, kind of like leveling up creatures in the past.
Yeah.
So I'd be surprised if you could just keep paying that, or that would be actually insane if you could just pay 2 to anticipate whenever you wanted to.
Right, I guess that's true. That would be pretty absurd. But yeah, like that. I mean, regardless, this is a pretty cool enchantment. The first 2 abilities, like I just love seeing the classes personified through an enchantment. So pretty sweet.
We're recording.
I think it's actually pretty fairly costed.
Yeah. It's only 1 mana.
It's 1 mana to cast, sitting on the battlefield and potentially draining each turn. That's fine. It's not super exciting. 2 mana to anticipate. That's a card that people play in blue decks, and this is the black enchantment version of it. And then 7 mana for that last ability. That's what is like wound reflection, 6 mana or something. Like you're actually like kind of paying the fair cost, and you're getting the flexibility along the way. So I don't know how much it synergizes with our deck in specific. I guess we have some sacrifice synergies to work with the first mode. Card draw is never bad. I don't think there's any combos with the wound reflection last mode that I've found, at least, but it actually seems like a pretty reasonable card.
It kind of works with our secondary commander, Karazikar, because not only are we goading opposing creatures, so they're going to lose extra life when they start hitting each other. But also, if they want to draw a card, they do lose 1 life. So now, boom, bada boom, they lose 2 life.
2 life. Got him.
That actually does add up.
Plus, they're forced to hit each other too. So it's like it's fantastic.
Look, if you have 7 mana, you can Wound Reflection, activate the Ebony Fly, and boom, roll a 6, hit them for 12. But it's mainly the first clause. Like, you have a lot of
That's
creatures to
11 mana,
sacrifice.
actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You need 11
mana.
to activate the fly, but continue.
You have to go through it. The way we're recording this before all the rules have been previewed and everything. So the way I understand it is, it enters the battlefield. It gets that first ability at the beginning of your upkeep, blah blah blah. Then you can pay 2 mana to level it up to level 2, and you get to immediately do that. And then you can pay 7 mana to level 3. So after it's level 3, you get that level 3 ability, but you also get the level 1 ability too, still rolling, I think.
You get all abilities,
Yeah.
except
It says
the
it
level 2
gains
one
the
has a
ability.
conditional.
Yeah,
on
it just
so
only
doesn't
happens
do
once.
anything. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's pretty cool. And
And
also
it's
like
at sorcery speed once again. Sorcery speed.
Sorcery speed. And also it's leveling up. Warlocks level up. That's the whole thing about you pick a class in Dungeons and Dragons, and then you level up in that class. And as you level up, you get more powerful. So this is like perfect flavor win. I love it.
But
All
how
right.
do I subclass?
Subclass. Well, maybe we'll have a subclass enchantment soon.
We're gonna need the return to Forgotten Realms to get that.
They have to save something for the return. All right, moving on. So whenever you go on an adventure in Dungeons and Dragons, that's kind of like the main thing. You form a party of characters, and then you go on an adventure. And whenever you go on an adventure, it's not like a video game where there's only 1 or 2 set paths. It's all about, figuring out the situation yourselves. It's very open-ended on how you want to handle a situation that has unfolded in front of you. And those are personified by cards like You Find Prisoners. So tell us about it, Richard.
All right, 1 in a red, so 2 mana value at instant. You get 2 options: break their chains, destroy target artifact, or interrogate them. Exile the top 3 cards of your target opponent's library. Choose one of them. Until the end of your next turn, you may play that card, and you may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast it. So not only are you interrogating them, you're stealing their secrets. You can cast the spell. Again, it synergizes with your commander, and it gives you the flexibility to destroy artifacts if you really want. But most of the time, you're probably interrogating people.
This is amazing, right? Like, you have so much versatility here in that you get to either blow up an artifact, which is very popular in Commander, or get to choose a card, right? Like, you draw a card. Why not?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a really cool card. I love how it's kind of a reverse anticipate, like a red anticipate. You got to do it from your opponent's deck, but you still get the same effect. And there are a lot of powerful artifacts. So I think, as Richard said, I would play it as like card draw mostly, but then know that I had it in my back pocket if there's a busted artifact that I need to deal with.
Yeah, I really like this. This is really flexible. Like, the fact that it's instant speed really makes it for me. Because you can basically, like, you hold this up, maybe you hold some other instant spell up, then you can choose by that end of the turn cycle, is there any artifact that I want to blow up? No. Then I'm going to end step before my turn, interrogate somebody, get that value on my turn, Like, I really like the flexibility here. It's not, like, mind-blowing, but the flexibility is really nice. So I expect to try it out at the very least. It looks sweet. All right, moving on. So we showed Wild Magic Sorcerer as another card before. This is kind of the same thing. I think it is also a Wild Magic Sorcerer. This one's called Chaos Channeler. Me. Tell us about it, me. All right, me. This is Chaos Channeler. This is a 4-mana Human Shaman for 3, 2 and double red to cast. And it has Wild Magic Surge, which is a thing that Wild Magic Sorcerers have, so I was right. Usually whenever you're casting a spell as a Wild Magic Sorcerer, every once in a while, if you roll on a d20, something magical and wild will happen, and you will randomly cast some sort of effect on top of your spell. And this is showcased with this ability. It's whenever Wild Chaos Channeler attacks, you roll a d20, a 20-sided die. 1 to 9, you exile the top card of your library. You may play it this turn. 10 to 19, you exile the top 2 cards of your library. You can play them this turn. And then if you roll a 20, which is a 5% chance, exile the top 3 cards of your library. You may play them this turn. So every single time you're attacking, you're going to be impulse drawing 1 to 3 cards every single attack step. And that's actually kind of insane. Like, you're going to be getting 1 card sometimes 2 cards. That's half and half chance, basically. Or, I mean, 3 cards if you have a 5% chance. That's pretty good. I mean, the hard part is going to be attacking with this creature and having it survive. But if you have some ways of getting like evasion, then this is gonna some pretty good card advantage.
Yeah, I mean, drawing multiple cards every turn does seem pretty powerful. I think there's, I guess, some ways to force things through. Our backup commander can like tap down a blocker, but there isn't like a ton of ways in the deck to give it evasion. But it's commander, so you can try to attack whoever doesn't have the blocker and make it work that way. But it is a powerful effect if it sits out on the battlefield. It's just it's a little slow, but it does have some synergy.
All right, I hate to be that guy, but Ebony Fly it gives it flying.
Oh, the synergy!
What are the actual themes of your deck? Goading, right? You goad your opponent's creatures as well, right? Like there are cards like Disrupt Decorum, which goad all creatures on the battlefield. So they all swing out, and you're like, haha, run in, hit them with the D20, get 3 cards, right? So we do actually have some synergy here. We have the goad synergy. We're also Rakdos. We're mono removal. There's a lot of removal in the deck. Just remove the blocker, right? And if you really want to send a message, use the Ebony Fly, right? Give it a little fly in, pop in there, draw some cards.
Are we a combo deck?
Yeah, I think this is actually really synergistic. I think this will connect.
And we make a treasure token with Prosper if we actually do cast a spell from exile with it.
You could draw so many cards because you exile 3. If you play them with your commander out, you just you can just go off, right?
Yeah.
We're popping off. The fly is revving up.
This deck is definitely not lacking.
It feels
for
your next fly
red.
activation.
Right? You have to. There's so many die rolls to make. You got to roll a good number to make your fly not die in combat. Then you got to roll a good number on chaos.
What do you mean not dying flies?
What's blocking it?
There's other flyers. There's other flyers in Magic Tomer.
Well, if
that
your
is not the
opponents
first.
also
there
have
aren't.
Ebony Fly, then you're in trouble, right? Like the only way to stop an Ebony Fly is to have your own Ebony Fly. This is what we've learned.
New commander meta. We're entering the Ebony Fly meta.
Nerf Ebony Fly.
This card's gotta be good, right? No, would you take it and put it in your other commander decks?
Only if it has evasion.
No.
I mean, it doesn't
I don't
have
think there's
evasion by
any-
default.
No.
Like,
if I have
you need to
a
give it
deck with
evasion.
evasion.
I would be happy to play it in this deck because there are synergies like Prosper for it and cares about playing stuff from exile. But I kind of feel like unless I have stuff like Prosper, there's probably easier and better and less convoluted ways for me to draw cards.
But what if you really like
But
rolling
the
dice?
D20 critical hit, man.
Yeah. You believe the luck in the dice. That's it. You have to.
And I know my luck is very bad, so I will only be drawing 1 anyway.
All right, so that wraps up all the new cards in this Precon. And just to recap really quickly, we have 14 cards that are exclusive to this pre-constructed deck, Planar Portal. There are 3 additional cards that are exclusive to the commander sets, or the commander decks, in Adventures in Forgotten Realms. And then we have 3 cards that you can find also in the standard set Adventures of Forgotten Realms. And then finally, the rest of the deck, 80 cards, are reprints. So now that we've covered the new cards, we're going to quickly go over the most notable reprints available to us. And they're going to be popping up on the screen right now. Bada boom, bada bing, boom, bump, bump, bump. Some really good ones. A lot of the ramp is actually really notable here. Some nice reprints. Talisman of Indulgence, currently pushing $7. It's $6.5 right now. Fellwar Stone, everybody loves Fellwar Stone. It's a commander staple. Also over $5 at this point. Very nice to see a reprint here. Tainted Peak is a card. The entire Titan cycle is fantastic. Whenever you have a swamp on the battlefield, this land enters the battlefield untapped and can tap for both black and red, so it's fantastic budget fixing. It's pushing $4 though, so you got it here. Vandal Blast, $5. But one card that kind of shocked me, Disrupted Decorum. We mentioned it. Richard, you mentioned it before. It basically goads all opposing creatures to kill each other. It's never been reprinted before, and it's $17 right now, so that's going to take a good hit.
That's so crazy because I don't think I've ever seen that card cast a single time. I was shocked when I saw it was worth $17.
I played in my goading deck, so
Makes sense.
Yeah.
But
Synergy.
I can't believe it was it's $17 now, or at the time of this.
The mana rocks are huge because those are cards that even if you ended up upgrading this deck or changing it, those are legitimate commander staples that are going to go in all kinds of different decks, and you're going to be really happy to have in your collection.
Flowers doing $6.
Yeah. And also a lot we talked about there was like a token sacrifice theme. You don't really see them in the new cards that we just talked about. You can find them mostly in the reprints. So like Piper of the Swarm, Chittering Witch, and Ogre Slumlord. These all make rat tokens, and the Chittering Witch sacrifices any creature to, remove small creatures. Slumlord makes creatures when stuff dies, and Piper the Swarm can actually take your rat tokens, sacrifice them, and steal opposing creatures. Very, very nice. And Marionette Master is also one of the biggest finishers in the deck as well. Whenever an artifact dies, you drain your opponents, and we're all about making treasure tokens, so that is some nice synergy. So some nice reprints here. Then we're going to just finally, to wrap things up, just a quick analysis of the Precon itself. Like, how well built is it? So the way I kind of analyze commander decks, especially ones on a budget, I kind of use a checklist to see how well built the deck is, if there's anything particularly lacking in the deck. And the way I do it is I look for 50 mana, lands, and ramp, usually a 37-13 split. 10 card draw, cards that need 2 or more cards in hand. 8 targeted removal, split between creature, artifact, enchantment removal, and I also count counter magic here. And 3 board wipes. Creature light decks might want 1 more, while creature heavy decks might want 1 less. 2 graveyard recursion spells, 2 flexible tutors, but at higher budgets, run a couple more tutors for more consistency. 1 graveyard hate to keep graveyard decks honest, and then at least 1 finisher, something that can win the game without too much setup. And looking at this pre-constructed deck, the Planar Portal, I counted 51 mana, 39 lands, and 12 ramp. And the ramp is really good here. Very low-cost ramp, like the Arcane Signet, the Soul Ring, the Felwar Stone. Really, really good, impressive ramp. One of the best I've ever seen. 12 targeted removal. And the fly. The fly is a
don't
2
forget
drop.
the fly. We can't forget the fly.
Finishers. That's under finishers.
That's the win con right there.
I didn't count it there, but you're selling me on it now. There's 12 targeted removal. Some really good ones here. Some that are kind of expensive, but a good mix. 4 board wipes. Reckless Endeavor can sometimes board wipe at least. 1 graveyard hate. The Rakdos Charm. Buza, love it. There's 19. I counted 19 card draw engines in this deck. Some are slow. Some are incremental, like Prosper Tome-Bound. Some are a little bit faster, like Light Up the Stage or Ignite the Future. So there's a really good mix here. It leans more on incremental card draw, but when you have multiple card draw engines, it seems like this deck is really well suited to go a long game where you're just constantly getting value out of it. And then there's like 3-ish recursion spells. Direfleet Daredevil is a chemister. No tutors, but that's normal for a pre-constructed deck. You don't want to give new players a deck that they've never played before and say, go search your library for cards. That's not good. And then finally, we have finishers. I counted Marionette Master as a big one, especially if Prosper is your commander. And there's a ton of theft effects. They're just stealing your opponent's cards and making them kill each other with it, or use goad effects like Karazikar or Disrupt Decorum to make them kill each other with the creatures they have on the battlefield. I think overall, really good stuff here. I'm really impressed by it. All right, so we covered the Precon. We went over the cards. We told you why you should like it, and that should be pretty much it. What do you all think? What's your closing thoughts on this pre-constructed deck? And what would be something that you would consider upgrading? Is there anything that pops up in your head?
I think the first thing that pops up is a Valky, actually. But that's because you're in Rakdos, so you got to play Tybalt, right? Because he's a tiefling. You got to play all. I mean, flavor-wise, I think you got to just play all the Tybalts.
Yeah.
You got to throw as many of those as you can in there. Functionality-wise, don't put them all in there. Just play only Valky or something like that. There's also, there's a few things actually. Holy cow! I mean, I think there's the obvious ones, right? Like Light Up the Stage if that isn't already in here.
It's in there.
We have it in the documents.
Oh, wow.
I made a list.
There's a long...
It was
okay,
a leading question.
We're going to skip that one.
I really like this deck. The deck is maybe the most random feeling and Rakdos feeling commander deck that we've ever seen. There's just so many crazy things that can happen with the deck. I will say the part of the deck I dislike is I really hate the rat token theme. There's only 3 cards. It's going to be really inconsistent. I kind of get what they're going for, that you can like sacrifice them for value, but my advice would be to take that out and like focus more on the main theme, especially if you're building around Prosper. There's really good cards like Stolen Strategy, Jessica's Will, that are great sources of card advantage that let you play things from exile that seem like really, really good upgrades. So that would be my first steps, is try to take out the rat token sub theme. I don't know, throw them in your binder and build a rat deck eventually or something, and add in some more exile-based Prosper cards.
So I really like the flexibility of the deck. We talked about a lot of synergies, but they're pretty loose synergies. Like, I don't think you even need your commander for this to work. Light Up the Stage is just a good card. Commune with Lava is just a good card. Atali, like, yes, they get a bonus with your commander out, but these exile card draw, like, they're just good. And because you have a lot of little sub themes going on, you can change your deck to suit that. Like, maybe you really like rat tokens, so you can go all in on the rat token theme. Or maybe you really like stealing people's stuff, you go all in on that. Or you just like drawing cards, right? You just draw more cards. The flexibility of the deck lets you do this without losing too much. It's not like other precons where, like, if your commander's not on the battlefield, you're having a rough time. This one is like a nice bonus. I would say this is kind of like a good stuff deck. Like, you just have good cards across multiple strategies, and there is some synergy there. But if your synergy doesn't come together, it doesn't all fall apart, right? Like, there's still good cards, so you can just go with that.
Yeah,
I mean, you can do the goad strategy because there's tons of stuff in red that you could goad away with.
Yep.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It really feels like it has some synergies. The commanders do bring something to the table, but it's not all in on them, and it's not using the commander to make bad cards good. It's just a commander that happens to synergize with good cards that have been collected here. So you could definitely make it a little bit more powerful by maybe cutting, some of the rats, maybe some of the dice rolling things, but it really depends on what you want out of this deck. And if you really like dice rolling, then you could go ham on that as well too. And if you're interested on how to power up this deck, if you like this pre-constructed deck, you want to pick it up, but you want to make a couple swaps to make it a little bit more competitive, a little bit more higher power for your play group, well, good news, friends. Coming very soon, the next day even, we're going to have a Precon upgrade video and article made by me. I'm going to show you how to upgrade this deck with a budget of $20. And I'm going to show you with basically about 10 swaps how to take this deck, optimize it to make it more powerful and more viable at higher level tables. So very powerful, very strong and good deck right out the box. But if you're interested in a Precon upgrade, that will be coming out very soon. So that's it for our upgrade or our Precon. Ugh. So that's it for our Precon video. Thank you so much, Wizards of the Coast, for letting us showcase this free preview. It was a ton of fun to go over it. I'm gushing about all the lore about it and the mechanics. It's really sweet, and I can't wait to get my hands on these cards. So that's it for the podcast, everybody. Hope you enjoyed. Thank you so much for sticking to the very end. And if you want to see high-res video or high-res images of all these cards, including the deck list, we'll have all of that in the video description below. So until next time, friends, see ya! Thanks for watching the video. If you liked it, help us out by clicking the like button down below. And to keep up with the latest and greatest, make sure to click the subscribe button. And if you want to watch similar videos, click on the links appearing on screen right now.